Welcome to our first Instagram Live of this year, 2021. As you know, we kicked off this series of live sessions or live interviews last year. And well, now we are starting this new year. We hope for the best, of course. We are still in with the pandemic. Today we have a great guest. She's Elodie Powers. She's the director of dubbing in a big company called Keyword Studios. Sorry. And she will tell us a little bit about what happened with the, how they could manage to deal with this new situation of being at home, and how they managed to continue working under these conditions. So we'll ask her many questions. So I will first invite her to the conversation. Let me check.
See, there she is. Hi, Elodie. How are you? Yes, I can hear you perfectly. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Of course, my pleasure.
Okay,
Thanks for having me.
That's cool. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? I mean, you want to introduce yourself, what you do, what are your working languages, if you like?
Sure. So my name is Elodie Powers. I work at Keyword Studios. It's a global company that was started over 20 years ago with the gaming industry, and over time has branched out to the media and entertainment, audiovisual localization. And I look after the audio development service line, so anything for original versioning, sound design, voice casting, start talent acquisition, audio mastering, and post-production. And we also, my team also work on the media and entertainment service line. So packaging content for the world to be able to enjoy, whether it's with subtitling, dubbing, audio description, captioning. And so we have facilities in different countries. We cover the Americas, so Latin America, North America. So we have studios in Montreal, Vancouver, Los Angeles, Mexico City, and Sao Paulo. We also have studios in Japan. And then we cover the EFIGs in Europe. We have studios in London, France, Italy, Germany, and Spain.
Wow, it's a big company, definitely.
I'm based in Burbank, outside of Los Angeles.
Yeah, where the action is. I mean, you're where the action is, definitely.
We hope soon. We hope.
Okay, that's great. And how was, I know you specialize in dubbing, and how was dubbing affected? I mean, the dubbing process, of course. How was it affected by the COVID situation? I mean, the recordings, what happened? How did you manage to cope with that?
It was a learning experience. We have animation studios in China. So we have colleagues that were able to share in their experience because they went through COVID a few months before we did. So we learned a lot from them in terms of how to work from home, how to adjust to different types of workflows, and how to keep communication going, and how to nurture the team environment, and we learned a lot from them. And we were blessed that they were able also to ship a lot of PPE to us when everywhere else it was impossible to find. They were, shipping things to the other Keyword sites. And then we had our colleagues in Italy who went through, the crisis in February, and in France. And so it was very difficult. And we essentially had to have closures. Pretty much, it seemed like every other day we were closing somewhere else. And we, for a while, we just didn't know what would happen and how things would be managed. But we all definitely wanted to ensure continuity for the community, which you know, we had clients that also had projects they were waiting, and it was just a lot of meetings, a lot of brainstorming, a lot of collaboration between teams, figuring out what our capabilities are, you know, technically, and we were able to put together some remote workflows that were in line with the security concerns that our clients had, and a lot of testing. We had to test because also the home environment can be very different from one country to another. The internet connection, there were just so many things that we had to figure out. And it felt like pretty much the entire month of March, we were checking things and seeing what we had to work with and what it was that we could be doing. And the whole, you know, team, global team really came together. Everybody every day was saying, I tried this works. And we were sharing, we use Teams as a company. So we had the channel dedicated to just, you know, brainstorming and finding solutions together. So, you know, we're resilient, we're creative, and everybody was very keen on, you know, doing whatever it took to find some solutions, and we did. And so it's not the same. And so, you know, we stayed remote, and then, you know, there were the deconfinement or reopening, right, in some countries. And then we realized it was as difficult to bring everybody back that it was to shut down, because you brought everybody back in, but it was different circumstances. We had to have a health safety person on site to measure temperature. We had to have new restrictions. We had to kill all of the areas where people would hang out and have coffee or food, or like the whole vibe of the studios was very different, because you couldn't have actors colliding in the halls. You couldn't have the usual. Typically, it's a very creative environment, and people talk to each other, and it's lively and buzzing. And all of a sudden, you had, you know, tape on the couch so nobody could sit down, and we had to text people so they knew when to come in, and productivity is slower. So yeah, it was a lot of work to readjust to going back, but under different circumstances and what that meant. And then now we're seeing second wave, now we're seeing third wave. And it's, you know, I think what the hardest is to keep your sanity, you know, and just know that we just have to hang tough. And we're grateful for, you know, some productions that are delivering and providing us work, but, you know, we don't know. I think nobody knows really what it all means for the industry, right? So there is content, there is work, but there's still a lot of questions about the production sets and how much, you know, new shows are really going to be able to deliver. And I'm sure everybody's heard about the rant Tom Cruise had on the set in London for his show, and it's, you know, there's a lot of money at stake. It costs a lot more to produce a show today, and yeah, so for us, you know, we're post, we're like very much down the line after all of that, you know, has been done, and so now we know we can manage. We went through this, so now it's 2021. We've been doing remote record for a while. We have our experience that was very much hard-won experience, and we're stronger as a result. And we know there's a lot that we can do. And you know, it gets tricky when you have to record kids at a house, right? Because they may not have a professional studio, and the parents may not be very technically minded, and so there are things that are just not gonna be the same. You know, so we also have to be very realist about what it is we can work with, where, and be very transparent about that.
I was going to ask you about that. If you had any remote, I mean, recording system or something, because I know that dubbing voice talents here, for example, in Argentina, I'm based in Argentina, they had to reinvent themselves, and I've seen really crazy pictures of their homes converted into like a mini recording studio, or yeah, with their mics and something soundproof. I mean, like improvised, because they don't have the means, and spending time and spending money on, I mean, on those materials. They are really expensive, and sometimes they don't even, you can't even find them here. For example, in a country like Argentina, they have to ship from overseas, and you know, with the pandemic, everything was like on a standby mode. So did you manage to record remotely? How did you do it? Did you implement a new system, or you did what you could with what you had?
Definitely, it was definitely local solutions, because you couldn't really have something one size fits all approach, because every country is going to be different. And so, yeah, we have had to ship kits to people's home, because after testing, it wasn't working out. So we would assemble, you know, everything in a special James Bond type little, you know, case, and you know, have it shipped, and you know, we definitely came up with all different sorts of solutions specific to the project. When the pandemic hit and we had to shut down in Burbank, we were in the midst of doing the post-production for a show for Hulu, and we had delivered 4 episodes, and we had more to go, and we were doing the ADR and the wallas and the Foleys, and the governor order came that we had to shut down. And so we had to get the talent to record from their homes. And so we were exploring their closets. We were checking out their, you know, different areas in the house with them. And it was definitely interesting to see how we could find solutions. And we always find solutions. I mean, that's I think
that's
the
a good
answer.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, I think for translators, you know, the community is very much used to working from home. So we also were able to, you know, I would hear a lot of comments saying, well, welcome to my world. You know, I've been doing this for a long time. Like, I know how to adjust my schedule and have a routine and, you know, do all of this. And it was really funny because, the exchange came, you know, from the translation community. It was like, well, you know, we're doing this. We've been doing this for a long time. It's like, oh yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, that's what I said to a group of friends the other day. We've been preparing for this moment for so many years. I mean, I've been doing this for 20 years. So for me, it's nothing out of the ordinary. But I can imagine that, I mean, one thing is being on your computer, translating even subtitles or dubbing scripts, but another different thing is dubbing is much more complicated, because subtitles you have to burn into the video or whatever they do. I don't know. I'm not really very savvy on the technical aspects of how they broadcast the subtitles, but dubbing is much more complicated, because you have to record the voices and you have to mix the sound and so on. And doing it remotely, I mean, it takes such a great effort in communicating, and I mean, everything has to be specifically timed, and it has to be like clockwork. I mean, otherwise it would be impossible. I mean, it's huge work.
Yeah, and I think what's really challenging is, you know, we're capturing performance, right? It's voice acting. It's so there's this whole level of energy that, you know, you get from being gathered in a room together that we don't get in the same way when we're on virtual platforms. And I think it was a huge adjustment for the artistic directors and the engineers. You know, sometimes some of the roles, you know, where the engineers will be very focused on something and the artistic director may be very focused, for example, on the labial sync. And then with the remote setting, maybe the engineer is now more focused on the labial sync and the artistic director is very much just focused on performance. And so everybody had to see and adjust, you know, on that level. And then for the talent, not being able to come to the studio and seeing their colleagues and maybe doing scenes, you know, in the same room together, it takes away from, you know, that too. So it takes extra effort to, in your own room by yourself, get to that level of, you know, energy and performance and sustain that across.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So,
yeah.
But, you know, you adjust and you find it and it works. I mean, I went to my first virtual concert a couple of weeks ago and I was kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of depressing, you know, to do this, but why not? And it was supporting a nice cause and it works, you know. The performances were really impressive, and although all the musicians were in different rooms and they were all synced, you know, and it was beautiful and it sounded great. So I think, you know, this is a perfect, I guess, example where technology and creativity really meet and enhance, you know, each other. So yeah, I think we are overall very blessed to be in this industry where we do have those, you know, amazing teams that figure out solutions, you know, with technology to make it work. Had this pandemic happened 20 years ago, we'd be dead in the water, you know, it'd be shut down.
Yeah. You know? Yeah, tell me about it. I used to work with CDs shipped from the US to Buenos Aires, so it would have been impossible. I mean, without and now we have like communication is instant. I mean, you switch a button and you are in a Zoom meeting or Skype or whatever, and you can do. I mean, you can pull things off. But 20 years ago was everything would have, and it would have been really sad because people at home turn to watch movies or series like on the platforms like Netflix, Amazon, on Hulu, all of them, and also to play a lot of video games. And I know you work a lot with video games. And is the process of dubbing a video game different from dubbing a series or a motion picture or?
Yeah, I would say very much different because most of the time when we start to localize or record for a video game, we don't have the references like we would for a finished film or a series. So within the video game, you have what the cinematic scenes, but then you have all the different gameplays and things. So you have to record a lot of efforts and record a lot of different alternatives, and because you don't really know exactly where it's going to fit or what it's going to look like, right? And then it gets integrated in the game, and then there are maybe different things that need to be redone. Whereas when we work for film and TV, animation, sometimes we work from the unfinished animation. For film and TV, sometimes we start working from preliminary, locked, and final material. But it is still, you get that visual reference, and you know exactly, you know, where the creative choices and what you need to do. So it is a very, very different process. And then the video game, you have to record individual files so that they can be integrated in the game and go in the right place. Whereas film and TV, we record scenes and we record, you know, so technically we process the produced audio in a very different way.
Wow, that's really interesting. I didn't know that you recorded like different parts. And what about, I mean, going more specifically to the work of translators? Do translators who work on dubbing script, should they be trained as voice talents? Is it necessary to translate the script, do you think, or not?
I mean, I don't know. I don't think it's necessary, but definitely you have to be very intimate with, you know, the experience that you're producing, right? So you definitely have to understand the technical constraints because they're very different, obviously, than for one application for subtitling or than dubbing. And then the software is different. A lot of times for dubbing, the translators, adapters, either work with the artistic director or they're part of that, that creative process. There's a lot of choices that are made based on labial. So it can be very challenging if we're doing something, say, from Polish to English, and you know the end syllable ends with a completely different movement than what English is going to be. Then we have to kind of really find the right, the right words, and that takes a lot of craft to be really, to have those muscles really, ready to go.
Yes. I mean, dubbing is a completely different process than subtitling. I mean, in subtitles, you have to condense, and in dubbing, you have to see how to make it fit. I mean, you cannot do it shorter or longer or whatever. You have to make it fit, whatever it takes. So,
and when you have the camera, when you have the camera right on the face, it's, really has to fit well. So, yeah.
Yeah, but that's good to hear that the translator works. I mean, it's part of the process, because in subtitles, you just translate the subtitles. You have your, of course, a video and everything, but you don't feel part of the creative team in a way, because you deliver your file and that's it. But do you have translators who adapt dubbing scripts? I mean, you said adaptators. Are these two different persons, or is this the same translator working on the adaptation of the dubbing script, or is the director adapting the dubbing script?
So I would say all of the above. It could be one person can do translation adaptation. Some prefer doing the translation and then letting someone else do the adaptation. And then there are some creative directors or dubbing directors that, can do the adaptation or the translation adaptation. It really depends on, the history and how, and some have teams, and some also take in interns and have apprenticeship. So typically, we've seen it where there are teams, and then the lead, artistic director could then just do the final review when they're, getting ready to cast, or when they're ready to prepare for their sessions, and then give some additional notes. But it is very much an open loop, because so much rides on, if it's not well written, in the studio, it's going to take a long time, and there's a lot more implications than with costs and productivity that could be very detrimental to the project. And the last thing we want is for the director and the talent to be questioning, who wrote this, or this is not good, like this is not working. Like, it can't happen. It has to be the thing nobody worries about, because then they can really focus on performance, and that's it.
Yeah, that's really hard. That's why I don't work on dubbing. I find it so stressful. I mean, because the subtitles, you see them on screen, you see how, I mean, if they are long, if they're short, or whatever. But I mean, dubbing is just, you translate, but it's just the beginning. And then there are some people who have to, of course, the actors have to interpret what you say. And the director will give them certain instructions, and maybe what you wrote is not adequate, as you said, and they say, who wrote this? I mean, this is too long, and we are wasting time and money, and it should be really, really stressful. But supposing, I mean, imagine that I say, okay, I want to try dubbing. I mean, just for a change. After 20 years of doing subtitles, I'm tired and I want to start working on dubbing. What's your advice for someone, I mean, maybe who is experienced in translation, but not in specifically in dubbing scripts, or who is experienced, for example, like me in subtitling, but not in dubbing? What would be your advice?
I think it would be to reach out to some renowned teams or of adapters, because you know those adapters are credited at the end of the programs usually, and so they're very easily identifiable. And so if there's a show or a film that you really enjoyed, and you're like, wow, that was beautifully done, and it made such justice to the original creative intent, and I didn't even notice that it was, like, then approach those people and ask them for advice. And I think the community is less accessible than subtitling because it is more part of that creative kind of circle, but they're there. So I couldn't tell you a specific association like this one, or where this is where they all are to kind of go. But I think approaching some people whose work you admire is already a good start to ask for advice. There are some studios that are offering training, and there's also in some countries some specific training that's available also via whether it's a university curriculum or a specific professional training from a media film body, cultural body. So I can think of some French ones, but within each country it might be in some different places. But it's definitely, and there's different softwares that we can use, to adapt. And some countries are using some technology, and some countries are not. So it's very much it's not unified and universal in how you can get into it as well. So I think if there's someone that's really passionate about it and really driven and really would like to try it, I would if I was in that situation, I'd probably reach out to somebody that I know has done some great work and could probably be of good advice.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, people are approachable. Although we think, okay, I won't ask them a question because I don't know. People are approachable, and if you are serious about what your intentions, and you want to, to improve and to try a different field of translation, I think that's a good way to start. Yeah, definitely. And what about songs? Because especially there was kind of a discussion earlier. It was last year, not earlier this year. It was last year with a musical called Hamilton that was played on Disney Plus when Disney Plus started, and it was crazy, and everybody wanted to watch it. And for example, here in Latin America or even in Spain, it was not dubbed or subtitled. It was just in English. Because it had a lot of songs, and maybe it was hard because of the pandemic to record those songs on studio and so on. But suppose you have the means, what happens with songs? How do you work with them when you have to translate them for a dubbed version? Do you work with musical adapters? Do you have to have specific knowledge about music to translate songs for dubbing or not?
Yes.
How do you manage that?
There's different, I guess, tiers. There's what we call ditties, where they're, little hums or lyrical sentences, and they're not considered actual songs. But if we're talking like a show like Hamilton, then you would definitely want to call on some lyricists, and you need choirs and you need singers, and so it's very rare to find acting talent that can sing on such a sustained level as Hamilton, for example, right? So for Hamilton, you would definitely want to tap in some Broadway talent and some theater talent to just get someone that can really do it sustainably throughout an entire show. I mean, there are shows for kids that, you could have 5-6 songs in one episode, and the songs are telling a story and they're rhyming, and it's super challenging because to find the cultural reference in the target language, and to have it rhyme and have it be just as engaging and entertaining. And then you also have, for kids, they're acquiring language, so you're very limited in, you just have to be very mindful of that language acquisition for the kids, and so you definitely want to go to a professional lyricist that will assemble the right team for that, and then we'll come to the studio. You have a musical director, and to make sure everybody's in tune, and it's just it's properly captured, and because the mics are going to be different, the studio room might be a specific room also, with different types of resonance, and so songs are very, very particular and handled in that way.
Yes. So I suppose you have like not experience, but translators who are also specialists in translating songs for the dubbing scripts.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I cannot imagine something harder than translating a song. I mean, when I have to translate subtitles for a song, which is just making them rhyme, because you don't have to think about the times, I mean, musical times or anything, because it's just there, it's text. It's really, really hard. So I think translating something for someone else to sing it, and it must be really, really specific, and I mean, time consuming.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say that we go to, I don't know that there are a specialized body of translators just for song, but we go to lyricists, right? So they are, and so most of the time they do speak English and they can translate the song, but usually their core activity is to write songs and produce songs. And so usually when we get a project where we have to localize the songs, we ask for the cue sheets, and all the musical information as well, because that's part of what we need to see to gauge the amount of work that's going to be needed. And the budget explodes with songs because of all these special, resources that we have to secure. It just can get really crazy.
Yes. Wow. that sounds really hard. I mean, organizing all that and trying to manage, I mean, the different stages of just for a couple of songs, because sometimes it's for 2 or 3 songs in a movie, but I mean, you have to do it anyway, and it's really, really hard on top of everything else you have to do, of course.
Yeah. I think for songs it's mostly going to be for kids animation or a musical, but mostly in TV shows and films, if there is a song that is plot pertinent, we would have to ask if we have the rights, right? Because maybe for the different territories, the rights are not acquired for that song. Maybe they need to switch up the song, or maybe we don't even do anything with that song, right? So it's songs are always very peculiar anyway.
Yeah, it's like every time I see there's a song in a movie, I say, oh my God, here we go again. But anyway, it's fun. At the end of the day, it's fun because you feel, okay, I did it. I pulled this off. I mean, I don't know if it's okay or not, but I did it. At least I did it. That's the really important part. I mean, completing your job. And I asked you about if there was a difference between dubbing video games or theatrical work, or I mean, and you told me, okay, this is done in different stages and so on. So, can you name any projects in which your studio worked? If you can, if not, I mean, that's okay.
Can I name any
Because
projects that?
Any projects in which you work? I mean, any well-known projects or releases. I know you work in AAA games and movies, but I don't know if you can mention some of them.
I mean, on top of my head right now, I don't know which ones we would be okay to share or not. So I wasn't prepared for that. I think if you go,
no, don't worry.
If you go on our website, like you will see references and things. But yeah, we worked on Cyberpunk. We did the French version of Cyberpunk, which was a big game that we, everybody talked about. So we produced the French audio for that.
Wow, that's cool. Yes, I know, because my husband is playing it. So I every now and then I watch it. I see Keanu Reeves there, and it's a great game. He's playing the Latin American version, the Latin American Spanish version. But it's a great game, I know, and there was so much expectation about that. So yes, I can imagine managing those projects, I mean, they are huge. How do you deal with this expectation? I mean, fans' expectations, or do you worry about that, or just do your work and that's all?
I mean, what we want to do when we start on something is really have captured all of the creative intention and really understand what is our mission with this project. And if we have any doubts or any, uncertainties, the producers really have to feel confident. Yeah, because then once you're going, there's expectations of delivery dates and, and kind of, it has to kind of flow through. There's always the unexpected and the unforeseen, but typically if we do a good job prepping and really capturing what is our mission within this production, then we're set, then we know what we need to do to achieve that. It's definitely, there's no 2 days alike, and I think that's why we all love to do what we do, is because we always learn something. There's always additional research, or working with incredibly talented people all across the supply chain. I mean, it definitely takes a lot of passion, to do what we do day in and day out, because there is stress, but overall, I mean, we have fun and we take a lot of pride in the work that we do.
Yeah, that's for sure. I mean, it's something you can show that it's there for everybody to see, and that's I mean, not everybody knows how much work is involved in producing, I mean, a dubbing script or recording voices or even creating the subtitles. But once it's out there, I mean, it's for everybody to see it, and so and when you hear good reviews, you feel kind of proud, even if, I mean, if you are not the director of the movie, or I mean, you feel part of the process, at least. Just a tiny little part of the process, but anyway. Yeah. And going back to video games, in one of our last Instagram lives, I mean, like 2 or 3 months ago, we talked with Carmen Mangiron. She is from Spain, and she is a specialist in video game translation. And I asked her this question, and I would like to ask this to you also. Do you have to be a gamer to translate for video games? I mean, even what do you think? I mean, is it better, or is it required or not?
I mean, I think, yeah, definitely, it's better because you're gonna get to geek out on some projects and just go crazy, because you know the IP, or you know exactly, how the community is engaged with this particular online game, or I think it will enhance. It doesn't mean you have to be a hardcore gamer, or it doesn't mean there's all kinds of different gamers, but I think being passionate about what you do is important.
Yeah.
I think it's going to really shine through the output, right? So maybe, you're a gamer in the making and you don't even know it, and you're interested, and then you discover this new passion, and then it's even better because we spend so much time doing what we do. We have to have that passion, right? So I think it's definitely a plus.
Okay, yes, that's what I think, but I wanted to have your opinion because it's great. I mean, we don't have the chance to talk to people from the industry very often. I mean, especially we translators, we are like at the bottom of the chain, let's say, because there are creative teams and there are technical teams, and maybe we're just, as I said, a tiny part of this whole process. But to see how it works and how much how much work is involved or required to bring something to life, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I try not to think about that because I panic. I mean, when I work I try to think about translation and language, and I mean, translation techniques and subtitling and timing and everything that has to do with that, because if I think how huge a project is and how much money was spent on that project, it drives me crazy. But it's great to hear this from you, because we have a hint of how the industry works and how many people are involved in the process, and that's really something to think about when you are working, at least on translating like the preliminary dubbing script or something. But it's really cool. So,
and I think for the translators, there's so much value in learning more about what people do for fun outside of work, and what other hobbies or passion or things, because that will also help pair them to different types of projects. Having that information, then down the line, like, I don't know, for example, Queen's Gambit, which was a very specific show about chess playing, right? Not any translator can have that know-how. And so who's good at chess, who loves playing chess, who's gonna have so much fun doing this show because they were part of chess club when they were a kid for 10 years, and so those things are important to somehow elevate in the conversation, because then it helps us also. Not everybody's good at everything, so we also have to kind of be mindful of these superpowers that everybody has.
Well, that's great to hear. Yes, I saw the Latin American Spanish subtitles for Queen's Gambit were perfect. I mean, I know nothing about chess. I watched the show, and the translation was awesome. I mean, I loved it. And I don't know the dubbed version because I haven't watched it, but the subtitles were super. I mean, I loved them.
Dr. House. That's what there's so many shows that have West Wing, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, I'm looking at putting in 25 hours of research before I get started, or what does this mean, and who already has that knowledge and that that ease with that vocabulary.
That's a great approach. As a project manager, as a company, seeing who is interested in what, or who is experienced in which areas to assign the project. That's really great to hear, because For me, I mean, in my specific case, I love legal language because I'm also a lawyer. So I was trained in legal translation. So every time I get something like, I don't know, while I worked on Designated Survivor, I was thrilled because I was, I mean, this was just for me. But
exactly.
sometimes when you get, I mean, sometimes you are asked about, and that's cool, you are, and you say, well, I have like sports documentary, like a American football document. No, thank you. Thank you, because that's not my field. I will spend hours of research, as you said. It won't be profitable, and I may be doing not such a good work. So maybe someone who is more experienced in this field will do something better. So if companies could have that approach, that would be perfect for us, I think. Because we would get like the titles we are interested in. Of course, you do whatever, I mean, you are assigned a project and maybe you say yes because you don't know what it's about. Sometimes it's something new and you don't have much information because of confidentiality and so on. So you just dive in and say, okay, I will do this. But it's true that if you can assign projects as to the interests of translators, that would be great. Yeah. Definitely. So I think with video games, it's the same. I mean, not all video games are alike. I mean, you have shooters, you have like this, like, well, Cyberpunk, which is like out of this world. I mean, it's crazy. That game is so well. I mean, it's been, I mean, there's some controversy because some parts were not completely finished, or I don't know what happened, but the graphics are cool. I mean, I see them and it's like being there. It's so immersive. It's really fun. And well, the same happens with other games, I know, but it's good to hear that I mean, it's a creative work, and if we are heard, I mean, we translators, if we are heard, if our opinions are heard, I think it's good for the process also. I mean,
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I don't have any questions here. Let me check. No. If someone wants to make a question, you can, as I said at the beginning. If not, you can leave comments wherever you like. But I think we are approaching. Let me check my. Yes, we are just about to finish. We have like 5 more minutes or something.
I can't believe it. I was so nervous. I'm like, 60 minutes? Really?
Yeah, I told you, 60 minutes sometimes it's not enough, because, I mean, you were really kind to be here. Really, we in the name of the division, of the audiovisual division, we thank you, because I know it's hard. You work a lot, and you gave us some part of your time. So here I have a question. It says, when a general public says a dubbed version is terrible, what do you think most likely went wrong? Bad actors, poor lip sync, bad script, all of it?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer because it could be so many different reasons. But yeah, I you know, any of these could be ending up in a bad experience. It's definitely the thing you don't want to hear. It's happened sometimes also that there was maybe in the localization process, maybe some creative choices were made that didn't stay true to the core community. So let's say, you know, we have a lot more crossover now between anime and games or film and TV and all of that. And so sometimes, because, you know, it's now made a TV show and it's going to air within these time zones, you can't have this type of character or keep the same language, and it has to be watered down or something. And then the fan base gets really upset because, you know, you're taking their world and diluting it for this, watered down version for TV. And so that's happened too, where everybody is up in arms because how dare you change the personality of my favorite character. And that, sadly, we don't have that responsibility. We follow the creative intent of, we try to enhance everything we can, in what we do, but we can't. There's something that are completely out of our control. But what is within our control, we really try to give ourselves the means to be to stand proud by the work we deliver. That's very important to us.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you again for being here. I know you are very busy, but this was really helpful for us, very informative, especially for us translators who maybe even don't know who our project managers are. Sometimes we don't know them personally, just through an email or something. So it was really, really interesting to know how this process is, comes to life, and how much it has changed due to this pandemic, which has changed everyone. Everyone's life has been upside down. But thank you, Elodie, for being here. As I was saying, on the name of the division, of the audiovisual division of the American Translator Association. Thank you. And I hope I will see you sometime in the future for another interview.
I hope so too. Okay? Yeah, sounds great.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Okay, so thank you all of you for being there. This was our Instagram live interview with Elodie Powers. This was so much interesting. We learned a lot about the process of dubbing. If you are not into dubbing, maybe you got a hint of how it's done and how hard it is to coordinate all these steps. If you haven't, you can turn on your notifications, your Instagram notifications about the new Instagram lives, and we'll try to post some interesting material for you to read on Instagram and also on other accounts in social media. So thank you for being there. It was a pleasure to be here, and see you next time. Bye-bye.